Hey, Dr. Clark here, and in this video we're going to be looking at sinking funds. Let's get started. So the main ideas for this section are first, well, what is a sinking fund? And then what's the difference between a sinking fund versus loan repayment? And then finally, accumulated value. So first, what is a sinking fund? Well, a sinking fund is a fund that receives regular payments from the borrower to accumulate value so it can be used later for some purpose. For example, against the principal on an interest-only loan. Typically, sinking funds receive regular payments at a fixed rate of interest with the goal of accumulating the principal balance at the end of the loan term. So maybe you want to think of it as, in 3 years, I want to buy a car. I'm going to need, say, $10,000 to do that. So what would happen if I put in $500 a month every month for the next 3 years? Would that accumulate to $10,000? What if I put in, $200 a month? Well, it would depend on the interest rate. And so that's called a sinking fund. So it's kind of like a piggy bank. Every month you put in a certain amount, you get interest on that money. It's like a savings account kind of, but it's a regular savings account. And then you accumulate money until after a certain amount of time you have a fixed amount. So another way to do it is you can think about paying off a loan this way. Let's say you owe $10,000. Well, you could put your money into a sinking fund where you're accumulating interest on that money, and at the end of, say, 3 years, you pay off the $10,000 all at once. Okay. Now, why wouldn't you just do a loan? Well, this is a slightly different thing. Sometimes you're saving up for something. There may or may not be a loan involved. So that's what a sinking fund is. And then, the questions are going to be, well, if you had this interest rate and this monthly payment, how much money would accumulate after a certain number of years? Or if it was a certain number of years and a certain interest rate, what would be the payment required to get to that balance? Or if this was the payment and this was the balance, what interest rate would you need? So there's all these cash flow problems that you can do with sinking fund problems. Okay, so then sinking fund versus loan repayment. So the sinking fund and amortization approaches to a loan repayment are actually equivalent when all accounts earn the same effective rate of interest. So it turns out that if you had a given loan and a given terms, you could sort of do it either way. If you had the same number of months, the same balance, and the same interest rate. You could put the money into an account earning interest and then pay it all at once, or you could pay the loan off month by month, paying off the interest. And it turns out that they will be sort of equivalent in the sense that the same total payments will add with the interest will pay off the loan, or you can pay off the loan month by month. So that's kind of an interesting idea, and it allows us to think about things from different perspectives, and sometimes that's helpful. Finally, accumulated value. So when we use the term accumulated value, sometimes future value is another name for it. There's actually a nice formula for this. So let's say you put in $1 at an effective interest rate I for n payment periods, and each payment happening at the end of the period. That's what we call S angle N. Okay, and so there's sort of this little notation with S and then the little N with the line over top of it. The bar given I means we're given a particular interest rate. Sometimes that I is not on there and it's just the S with the N bar on it. So it's S angle N. But that is the accumulated value of a series of $1 payments at an effective interest rate I over N payment periods where each payment occurs at the end of the period. And it turns out that there's a nice formula for that. It's 1 plus I to the nth power minus 1 divided by I. Okay? And then you say, well, what if it was $20 payments or $50 payments? Well, it turns out because of the way the math works, you could just factor out that $20 and then take 20 times S angle I if it was, or S angle N. If it was $20 payments, you just take 20 times S angle N. So that's really nice. So we base S angle N on $1 payments, and then we can change it to any other payment as long as it's a constant payment. Okay, we sometimes call this the future value because it's sort of what's the value in the future if I paid in $20 a month for the next 10 years at an interest rate of 2% or something like that. What would it accumulate to? What would it be worth in the future? All right, so there's a nice formula for that. Okay, so this topic, this accumulated value, the sinking fund, the accumulated value in the sinking fund, that's the same thing. It's just sort of two different words for it. But that S angle, then the S is for sinking fund. It's going to be a really important topic. It's going to keep coming back and back and back. So that formula is one we're going to want to be familiar with, know how to use, and the concept is important to know how to use and to think, oh, is this like, oh, I'm putting in money, that's like a sinking fund. And then we've got nice formulas for it. All right, so we'll tackle the exploration in class, and I'll see you then.